Real. And there we are. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Facebook Live here at Pet Hub. I am Lorien Clemens. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Pet Hub. And this is Lost Pet Prevention Month. And we have some really exciting guests today. We're going to be talking about when your pets are missing and what really happens out there. What are the animal control officers really doing? If you're in a natural disaster situation, what's really going on behind the scenes? And so we've got some amazing folks here with us today. I'm going to quickly introduce them, and then I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves. So we have Jerica Owen. She is currently running the National Association of Animal, no, you say it's NACA, but it's National Association of Animal Care and Control. No, that's wrong.
National Animal Care and Control Association.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I didn't have that written out in front of me. I blew it. We also have Eric Thompson. He's with Code 3 Associates. And we have Spencer Conover. He is also with NACA, and he is with Pasco County down there in Florida. So I'd like each of you to introduce yourself and tell us what it is that you do, and then we'll dig on into some questions. So Jerica, why don't you start?
Hi, thanks for having me. So my name is Jerica Owen, and I'm the Director of Partnerships and Programs with NACA, National Animal Care and Control Association. I've been in the animal welfare field for over 20 years, with 15 of those being in an amazing organization in San Diego where I live. And earlier this year, I was lucky enough to move to NACA. So I'm excited to be here with you guys today and working on Lost Pet Prevention Month with some amazing partners, and that's me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jerica. Spencer, tell us all about yourself.
Hey, everyone. My name is Spencer Conover. I'm the current Assistant Director of Pasco County Animal Services in Pasco County, Florida, about 20 minutes north of Tampa. I also sit on the board of directors with NACA. I've been in animal welfare and animal services for over 10 years now. Worked a lot with private nonprofit organizations, and most recently received a Master's of Interdisciplinary Studies in Contemporary Animal Services Leadership from Southern Utah University. I've been with Pasco County, serving our great county with animal control and animal services for about 3.5 years now.
Awesome. And Eric, tell us all about you and Code 3.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Eric Thompson. I'm the Executive Director for Code 3 Associates. I started out, I think I'm the old guy in the bunch. I've been in the animal welfare business for over 20 years. I started out in law enforcement and animal control and worked up through supervisory. The entire time I did disaster response and search and rescue on the human side, and then combined that in with animal rescue, and eventually started another company called ACO Training and Response, which was formed back in 2013 at the request of USDA and FEMA. And now we have Code 3 that trains disaster responders and law enforcement in the awareness and operations level, and then ACO Training and Response train our responders to work with task force team and USAR teams so they can be mission ready packaged on the front end of disasters so people and pets can be evacuated together. So a wide range of experience in the field. Lorien froze.
Lorien froze. Oh, we're running the show now, guys.
All right.
All right.
Now we can really get started.
Whatever we want to, because the host is done.
Absolutely.
So,
Spencer, you had Hurricane Elsa on your store scout.
I can definitely start with that. Yeah, we are just less than 48 hours coming off of Hurricane Elsa skirting by us, and I will say we are blessed here that, I joke, you see all these memes and funny things about how ambivalent people in Florida are to preparing for hurricanes, because every day at about 3 o'clock, we have hurricane force winds blow through our state in the form of a thunderstorm. And so Hurricane Elsa, being a low category 1 high tropical storm, depending on where you were, was pretty normal for us. And it's weird to say that, but we were really, really lucky. The wind gusts here in Western Florida, reaching 70 miles an hour on the coast, slightly inland was a lot lower, 30 to 40 miles an hour. And like I said, we're pretty used to that here. We did open a couple of emergency shelters in the area, one here in Pasco County. Citizens were lucky enough to be able to take advantage of that. A couple dogs, a couple cats, but luckily for us, a little bit of wind and a lot of rain. I feel bad for our California folks like Jerica. We got a lot of rain out of it, but unfortunately fortunately rather for us, that was just about it. Really, really lucky to have a plan ahead of time. We have our cooperative plan here with the county emergency management, and with our pet safety net program. It's important for us to always have that plan ahead of time, as I'm sure you know, Eric.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great update. Thank you.
Hey, sorry about that.
We were going to roll on without you, Lorien.
I appreciate that. And I take it that you guys are talking about Lady Elsa and her blowing in and making everybody wet. And since we would also like some of that rain up here in Washington State, we are dry up here right now. Thank you. That's actually kind of a great segue into what I want to really focus on first and foremost is obviously being prepared. And how you never know when your pet is going to go missing. And I can't tell you how many folks we would talk to over the years with Pet Hub and our ID tags, trying to convince people that they needed to have a more comprehensive approach to their pet identification. And they would say, oh, my pet's microchipped. Oh, he'll never get away from me. He's always next to my side. And then something like Elsa comes in or worse, like something that is really unexpected, like the collapse recently of the condos or a fire, all these kind of things. You never know what's going to happen. So I'd like it if we could kind of look this from the approach of like, let's dispel some of the myths that are out there about lost pets, what happens to them when they're out there, and specifically, since I've got you folks on, what does that interaction look like with law enforcement? Because I think it's kind of it's been over the years a very intimidating thing, and there's a lot of myths out there about animal law enforcement and ACOs. I mean, there's the whole stereotype of the dog catcher that unfortunately still is out there. And so I would like it if you could, let's just start there. Let's start with like, what does it mean? ACO, Animal Care Officer. What does that mean? Who wants to start?
I can kind of kick it off real quick and just kind of give my 2 cents here. In Pasco County, I manage a team of animal control officers, and as part of that role, I'm a certified animal control officer myself. And means very differently than what it meant several years ago. And what we've seen recently is we've had so much success with our organization specifically, and we're seeing that spread, that an animal control officer is so much more than go out, pick up the animal, bring it back to the shelter. They really are that liaison, that first line of defense between people and their pets and the animal services or animal shelter in their community. And they are the ones, the animal control officers specifically, are the ones that can be the difference between saving that animal, keeping it with the family during times of crisis, times of stray, anything like that, or the animal ending up in the shelter where something negative might happen. And so we've seen that shift over the last several years. And our officers here in Pasco County, and then we see them all across the country with NACA, and I'm sure you do too, Eric, with Code 3, is we've seen that shift of the officers embracing that role of not just control officer, but like you had mentioned, Lorien, is that care officer, is that engagement officer, is that first line of defense with the public.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about, Eric and Jerica both, I think you guys would be great to talk about the immense training that goes into being an animal control officer.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick and then hand it over to Eric. So both NACA and Code 3 have some just amazing training out there. And there is state association required training depending on what state you're in. And then, of course, NACA has our national certifications, ACO 1 and ACO 2, which it's a basic and then a more advanced training. So it's all, the training needs to cover everything from how to interact appropriately with the public, some innovative approaches to, pet reunification and things like that. And then also, how to appropriately cope, because animal control officers see a lot of things, right? When you're in disaster or when you're, in certain areas, there are things that it's oftentimes very emotionally charged situations. And so how do we give the officers and those working, in the field, the tools and training that they're going to need to be successful and to be safe and to help keep the public safe?
Yeah, because it's not only training about how you interact with the animals, but it's also that training of how you interact with the humans, which just makes it kind of tricky. Eric, talk specifically about that training that you do with Code 3, that very specialized training you do.
Yeah, so Code 3 it builds on everything that Spencer and Jerica have talked about. There is the cruelty investigations training that we really work hand in hand and try to relate down to boots on the ground. But as Spencer mentioned, the roles are changing, and we're seeing a more, and I hate to use the word appreciation, but maybe recognition of the roles and responsibilities that ACOs play in their communities to make it a whole community effort to reunite pets and people. And that's one of the things that we really push in the disaster world when we start to teach the ACOs of how to transition their field skills and their daily road skills to disaster response. Because really, animal control officers are first responders. They are the front line to reunite those pets with their owners. And when that pet is lost, when it's scared, they're going to get that call. And working with, corporations and agencies that can help with that reunification and get it away from the paper product. Over the last 20 years, I've gone from using duct tape to tell somebody where their pet was, to taping a piece of paper in a plastic sheet so it would stay dry, to now we're starting to see the advancement of great technology where we can almost get pets reunited with owners in real time. When we talk about ASAR, Animal Search and Rescue, that's just a fancy term for animal control officers working with other first responders to evacuate people with their pets. And if pets are left behind for some reason, we still work with ACO partners during disaster response, because that's where the disaster started, was that local event. So those are the subject matter experts that we want to have on these search and rescue teams to say, hey, I know where that pet is. I know where it goes to, and it's got a buddy 2 blocks over that I bet we're going to find it at that house. And so the knowledge that we glean when we're out during disaster response and the networking is so important. So the roles and responsibilities really have changed and advanced over the years. And, I think all of us work to try to bring it all together in some sort of cohesive network.
Yeah, and I would love it. So we're talking about lost pet prevention, and which has so many different aspects to it. Let's talk about, if I'm a person that owns a pet, I've got a pet, a dog, a cat, horse, pygmy, name it, but let's just focus mostly on those small companion animals that we're mostly talking about here. What can I do on the prevention side before the disaster hits, before I accidentally leave the door open, before he gets spooked, when we open up the door at the veterinarian, before that he's gone happens? What can I do that will help you out in the field when you're helping me try to find him and get him home to me?
I don't mind jumping in first. I think without a doubt, it's so important that we've built it into our local ordinance here. If an animal comes into contact with our organization, it's getting a microchip. And that's just, that's neither here nor there. If you come into our clinic, if you come in as a stray, if you get adopted, if you go to a rescue organization, you're getting a microchip. And microchips are the absolute #1 way that we're getting animals back to their owners right now. And there is a common misconception still in the community that a microchip is a difficult process or an expensive one. And there's been so much advancement over the last several years to make it both very, very easy and very, very inexpensive for pet owners. And the more that we get animals in our community microchip, that's first and foremost. There's many ways that I'm sure we'll talk about, but without a doubt, here in Pasco County and with other NACA organizations that we see, the microchip is the first and foremost for both dogs and cats. We also microchip ferrets here in Pasco County. So, it's not just dogs and cats.
I have a tortoise, actually, and she's microchipped as well. So it goes beyond even those animals you think you may not need. So I'll jump in. I think that, another way is just empowering owners with accessible resources. And so, that's going to be those microchip clinics, education about microchips, what they are not. There's also misconceptions that they are sometimes GPS tracking systems, or, there's these things out there, and we know that that's not true. So empowering owners with the education necessary, and then some of those resources as well. My community just did a free license. If you got your rabies, June was a free license. So sorry, there's a helicopter over my house.
We can't hear it. Don't worry about it.
It's loud. So again, just empowering owners and providing those resources where it's necessary to really help ensure that those pets get microchipped. They get those collars, those tags, even taking resources into the community, providing officers possibly tag machines, or the ability to give out licenses in the field. Things like that will really help and go a long way as well.
And obviously being proactive about that too. We see such a high number of animals that come in with a microchip and the information is not up to date. They've moved or the phone number has changed. We see so many animals that come into our care as strays without the collar, and then the owner comes forward later and, oh, I was giving the dog a bath and I took the collar off. If that was true, we'd have the cleanest animals in the entire country. So many people are just giving their dog a bath. Don't give me that. Come on now. When you do the bath, the collar's got to go right back on, because it goes back to that, like you mentioned earlier. Oh, it could never happen to me. My dog would never go missing.
Right.
If that were the case, if I had $1 for every time we saw an animal like that, I wouldn't have to work here. It's just, it can happen to you. It can't happen to your pet. So without a doubt, I'm sure we'll go into what to do today when your animal goes missing, but it's so much about that proactive approach. You have to take those steps ahead of time. And
we talk here at Pet Hub about never let your pet go naked, period. Like even in the bath, we actually recommend that you give the bath with the collar, like there in the tub, give the collar a wash and, use that opportunity to de-stinkify the collar.
Well, the collar's gross too, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Right? It needs a bath too. So never let that pet go missing, and never let that pet go naked. And the other thing too is that I mean, we are big proponents here at Pet Hub, obviously, with microchips, huge safety net that you have to have, but it's not a panacea. And I think a lot of the public seems to think like, oh, my pet's microchipped, he's never going to get lost. He's always going to get home to me. But it is not the end all be all. If it was, we wouldn't have lost pets. I mean, you mentioned, Spencer, about not keeping up to date, that kind of thing. But there's other issues that can come into with it. And the bottom line, if I see a pet that has a collar and a tag, my brain is immediately going into, oh, there's information for me to help that pet get home. I obviously think immediately of a microchip because I'm in the industry, but not everybody does. And so that out of sight, out of mind, that's a problem too. So, Eric, anything else to add on that? Like, what can pet parents do on the back end of prevention that if the pet does get missing will help you guys facilitate getting home much more quickly?
Yeah, we're big for asking them to make pet go bags. So as part of the Code 3 disaster planning process, we actually have a small book that has a tear out sheet that has all their pet information. And we ask them to take two pictures. Is that we ask them to take a picture of the pet, and then we ask them to take a picture of them with the pet to prove ownership if they can't find any more paperwork. But then, of course, having a variety of phone numbers, including, poison control, veterinarians, friends that can be host agencies or host places that they can go to keep their pets. But when it boils down to if that pet gets lost, is maybe have some canned messaging. And I'm all about good forward messaging from owners. I can't tell you how many owners have come to me and said, my dog's lost. Great, describe it to me. Well, it's a brown chocolate lab type dog. Does it have any distinctive marks? Well, it might have something on its nose. And I'm always astounded by people that don't know the unique identification marks on their own pets, or whether they've done tattooing or microchipping or something that stands out in that pet that's going to help us reunite it in the field. And of course, we're seeing advancements in technology with facial recognition and other technology that can help us. But getting down to some of the basics and making that go bag to be part of your disaster preparedness kit that can be used in any lost animal situation is a great way to go.
Eric, what do you think is the best? What have you guys found is the best way to communicate the need for that to pet owners?
It's really it usually takes a disaster to really bring that up and go. Yeah. Because we find that if we preach it too much, there seems to be some information fatigue. Yeah, I've heard it, I'll get around to it, versus, hey, Hurricane Elsa just went by, you should have done this already, and really tie it to an event.
Yeah, that's true. We actually, right after, Katrina and then Matthew and a couple of the other big ones that happened over the last decade and a half or so, that's when we saw the biggest surge of people coming and saying, oh my God, what should I do to be prepared so that doesn't happen to us? All those missing pets, what do I need to do prepared? And it's a sad truth. And I'd also just add here too, part of being prepared in a modern world, there are lots of places that you can create an online profile for your pet to have exactly what you're talking about. Eric. Have that pre-canned description of your pet. Also, any medications that they might need, any vaccinations, the conditions that they might have, behavior issues, because that could be critical when finding, when you've got a pet coming into a shelter, especially like understanding that those behavior issues. That's something that obviously I'm going to plug Pet Hub. You can create a free online profile for your pet at Pet Hub. You can have all that stuff right there. But there are other resources out there where you can do that as well. And then you'll have that you've already taken the time ahead of time to think about how do I describe my dog? How do I describe my cat? He's not just a ginger tabby, but what's distinct things about Tormund make him distinctly Tormund, that type of thing. So let's talk about that moment when you realize the pet's gone missing. First steps. What should you do? Let's start with you, Eric.
Generally cry, panic, run around the house, check under the bed, those types of things are always popular at my house. Yes. But really taking time to take a breath. Okay, what has happened? Can we assess the situation? Has there been workmen in the house and the animal's legitimately scared and gone on a run? Has it happened before? Take some time to think it through before you start screaming and jumping on the phone to animal services or to the shelter. But then, get some help, get some people that can give you some perspective, and then start the team effort. There's nothing wrong with still taking the old school, going around talking to neighbors and see if they've seen anything, throughout the day, especially the folks that are home all day. Take some time, go to houses behind, to the side, go, a block away. Have somebody start online. Even if somebody can't be on the ground and do the footwork, there are a lot of online options to find. Facebook lost and found pages, do that research. A lot of things can be done at the same time. And then, of course, notify animal services and your shelter. Hey, I have lost pets. Here's a great, here's the detail. Do you have them? And even though that you do contact these agencies, follow up with them. Because remember, some of these shelters are really busy. They may not know what animal services has brought in them in the last hour or two, may not have the most current information. So if the initial efforts don't work right off the bat with the phone calls, go visit those areas and go physically look for yourself if possible to give yourself the best chance to find your pets.
I think one thing that we see very often is our county here locally with animal control, we have 750 square miles. And what we see is pet goes missing. And the initial reaction is, oh my gosh, we had great name recognition in the community, and our community trusts us. We have a great animal shelter. But with that being said, people rush right to the shelter, and they'll come from areas 45 minutes away, 50 minutes away within the same county to our shelter. My pet's missing. When did it go missing? An hour ago. I don't even know how you got here that fast, much less your pet. Is right. Like you said, Eric, 90% of those animals are going to be found within a mile of your house. And so check with your neighbors. Right. We have millions of dollars in operating budget, but we've seen more field return to owned animals through Facebook lost groups that are free to use than we have through our animal sheltering or facial recognition technology or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Check with your neighbors, check in your area. That's where your pet went missing. And that's where your pet's most likely going to be in that first 48 hours. If you don't find them then, now it's time to start utilizing the social media, the extra social media, and then getting with your animal shelter for sure. That's what we see in our area.
Yeah, I'll just echo. I mean, everything that they said is exactly what, the steps you should follow. But yeah, the data that pets are generally found within a mile of their home has been proven by, lots of different agencies looking just at their own data. And so you definitely want to look local first. All the social medias, like Eric said, go around the neighborhood. I am embarrassed to admit, but my tortoise did get out one day, pushed her fence. She's pretty big. Pushed the fence right open. I did panic, ran around the house, look under the bed, screamed, whatever. But then immediately went right next door, and lo and behold, she's right there. And so, it's definitely important to look around your neighborhood, because that's where your pet's most likely going to be within that first, 48 hours or so.
I don't know if you guys are the same way, but I live in a neighborhood that has a neighborhood Facebook group, and there are people on there that if a car is parked on the wrong side of the street, it's all over, or there's a garbage can out an hour past when it's supposed to be out, it's posted all over. If somebody finds a dog, it's sure as hell going to be on there. So check those areas first. Absolutely.
And next door too is another.
Next door is a great one. Yeah, 100%.
And a couple of things here. I will say that we've had several panicked moments at our house when the cat's missing. She wasn't actually missing. So that's part of too about prevention, is really knowing your animal really well, particularly with cats. They tend to hide when they are spooked, and know every hiding space in the house so you can do that full look through the house and like have somebody outside looking for sure, but also make sure you're doing that full scope within the house. But then the other thing about, to me, it's again back with prevention. You've taken the time to get an online profile set up for your pet somewhere. Most of those services like Pet Hub and others that have online profiles, you can do an instant lost pet poster. And if you have a frequent flyer, we have several pets that we call frequent flyers because our call center gets the call about once a month about these guys being found various places around their neighborhoods. Pre-print the thing, pre-print the lost pet poster, because if you know that they're an escape artist, or they're that cat that's like, oh, sing the song of my people, let me out now, kind of a cat always wanting to escape, pre-print that sucker up and then have it so you can immediately take it out. My husband actually had one immediately ready to take out for our cat that gets out all the time. We actually realized, okay, no, he is missing now. And sure enough, within like 5 minutes, somebody's like, oh, that cat's in my backyard, that kind of a thing. So that's about a prevention part, so that it also helps you reduce the panic when they go missing. If you've done that pre-work ahead of time, okay, I've got a plan. And one last thing before I ask the next question, because you mentioned this, I think, Eric, if you don't know who your local shelters are, then you've missed out on the opportunity for that prevention ahead of time. So particularly when I move into a new place, or if you're listening now and you're like, oh gosh, I have no idea where I would call, one of the things that you have up on the fridge at home is a list of where you call when you do need to call those shelters. So you know ahead of time who to contact, because the last thing you want to be doing is having to get on Google and try to figure out, well, where the heck do I call? Have those numbers ahead of time. Anything else to add before we move on?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. So I would love to know, same question actually, but in light of Elsa and other natural disasters, and we're getting ready to gear up big time for hurricane season, what's different? What are those first steps that are different when you're talking about after natural disaster, like a fire or a tornado, which is completely unpredictable most of the time, and hurricanes? What are those? How does it differ for those first steps that a pet parent should take when those things happen?
I'll jump in first. And first and foremost, take them with you. If you have any option at all, take them with you, and plan to take them with you. It doesn't do you any good to have 6 Great Danes in a smart car, because they're not going to fit. So, and that relates to any animal. Make sure that you can transport the animals that you own out of the disaster area. But then, of course, if you're not home, and a lot of times animals are left behind, people are at work and the disasters happened and they aren't allowed back in. And so animal control is tasked with missions. So knowing who to call and again, I'm going to caveat this. Social media can work for us and social media can work against us. People throwing help, my dog is trapped at my house on the Facebook is a nightmare for our animal service officers and our first responders and our emergency management. So knowing who to call and getting the right people that are credentialed, know the area, and have authority to be there once a disaster happens is really important. So it would be important for Spencer's team to be the advocate for that owner to go get that animal, not for the owner to risk their life or to cause more issues for the animal services teams. So that's a big deal. And then if the disaster happens and the home is no longer there or not habitable at the time, we're always working with a lot of different search and rescue techniques now to know, hey, where was your house supposed to be, whether it got flooded out or whatnot. If the street signs are gone, we'll still be able to get there. So having that information of, are there landmarks that we can follow if your address is not visible anymore? And not that we are trying to make people think of the catastrophic and the horrible, but that's our job to do as first responders. We want to have those plans in place to help those people and guide them through that process. But if you can take them with you, get out of the way and get out of the way early.
And we always appreciate citizens who have that healthy respect for our levels of prioritization and the emergency calls that we get in. And as much as we want to, take everything and drop it, for your kitty that's missing because you left the door open. If there is a disaster, specifically as we're talking about, unfortunately, our limited resources when it comes to officers is not going to be able to do that right now. We're a great organization. We'll get to you, but unfortunately, we have to set those levels of prioritization, and citizens that have that respect for our organization, we absolutely love partnering with, and so that's definitely important for us.
Mm-hmm. And I would say too, just another thing for prevention, assuming that your house is still there. There's going to be times that you might be away from your home, but you went out to run an errand or something like that, and then something very unexpected happens, and then a first responder is having to come to your home for whatever reason. Having something on the outside of the house that says there's an animal inside or whatever has been, particularly when we have here locally, when we've been evacuated because of fire and whatnot, and there's times that, like, sorry, you can't get back into the neighborhood, period. And it's a pretty panicked feeling, but knowing that the animal was at home while you were out trying to take care of something else. Having that sign on the door, they are going door to door and trying to get everybody out. And so it can't hurt, but it can help too as well. Anything else to add before we go there?
I'll go on the other side of that real quick. And I don't know if it's
please do
appropriate to talk about, but if you don't have a dog, don't put a beware of dog sign on your fence, because then we go looking for it and it's not there. Like, I don't, it doesn't happen often, and I get what you're doing. You want to protect your property, but if you don't have a dog, don't put a beware of dog sign on your fence, because in an emergency situation, as we're going through a flooded neighborhood, we're looking for your dog. And that's preventing us from helping. Preventing us from helping others. It doesn't happen often, but we have seen it.
Yeah. Anything else to add, Jerica or Eric?
I can just chime in and say, in Southern California, we have fires. So very oftentimes those fires happen very quickly, and people are at work and they cannot get back behind fire lines. So any of those preventative preventative measures, microchips if the pets run or get spooked, or the pet tags, any of that stuff is going to be really helpful no matter what type of disaster it is and whether you're able to get home or not. Oftentimes they will feed in place as well. So if you have, extra food and things like that, make sure in your plan where everything is, so you can very quickly hand that off to the officers who are going behind fire lines or into those flooded areas to help take care of your pets.
Let's end this on, because we don't have much time left, but let's end this on some uplifting. I would love to hear about those rewarding experiences that you had out there, whether it be a big natural disaster experience or just being able to help the day-to-day folks out there in the field get those pets reunited. I'd love it if you could share some of those really awesome experiences that you've had.
Well, I'll start. That could be a whole show by itself, over 20 years of disaster response. But the most recent, I think we had, I'm going to give you two really short success stories. One small animal, one large animal. And they both stem out of Hurricane Florence, where we were working in a flood zone that was 17 miles wide. We had a resident keep telling us that she had a little white dog. It was a poodle mix that was left behind in the flood, and she kept giving us her address, and we couldn't find her address. We looked for the house for 3 days, and I sent a team in every day to go find where, she gives different landmarks and directions, and we could not find the house. We couldn't find the house until the third day, when the water started to recede and the top of the house started to show. And we went, and the team went and knocked on the side of the house because we couldn't get to the door, and the dog barked. The house has been unseen underwater for 3 days. And so the team gets in, breaks in the front door. They have to push in the front door, and the dog is floating on a mattress. And no kidding, folks, only had that much airspace in there that was able to retain. The dog survived with the house underwater. And as soon as the responder kicked the door in and pushed the door in, dog jumped, went straight to her, and it was an amazing save. And then the other one, same flood, we had 2 horses that we searched for 2 days. They turned out to be 8 miles in the flood water, standing in about 6 feet of water. Their necks were just barely above. There was no way to swim them. They were exhausted. So we found a porch about several hundred yards away. We were able to swim them to a porch, and they lived on this porch for 2 weeks until the floodwaters receded enough, and we boated the vet out there every day. We took them hay and water every day, and they lived on that porch for 2 weeks until they could go home, and then they were reunited with their owner. So all good stuff.
Wow. Okay, top that, Jerica or Spencer. Those are amazing. It also kind of reinforces that never give up. If you've lost your pet, never ever give up. Jerica, do you have any great rewarding experiences to share?
I mean, nothing that tops that. I've got goosebumps. That's amazing. Having worked in the sheltering side for 15 years, we had so many amazing reunifications, some even after 7 and 8 years, whether the pet goes missing or, then the people moved. So I don't have any specific stories, but just knowing that there are things that we can do as a community, as a pet owner, that really will help reunite us with our loved ones if they go missing should be done. And I've seen it time and time again over my time in animal welfare that it's so heartwarming when those reunifications happen. So
I think one thing that we've seen, I don't know that I have any specific instances, but for us, it really boils down to when we really made the shift from, hey, our officers are going to change from go get the animal, bring it back in, go get the animal, bring it back in, to really helping the community and trying to reunite these pets with their owners. An officer goes in the field and they pick up an animal. They have to bring it all the way back to the shelter. They have to take it out of the truck. They have to vaccinate it. They have to find a kennel if they can find one. We're almost always full. And then they have to try to figure that out. What the officers started to realize was, man, instead of doing all that, wouldn't it be easier if I spend 20 minutes and look on a Facebook group or check a microchip or look up a license tag? And we've started to see our field return to owner rates increase and increase and increase. And it's not only become better for reuniting pets with their owners, but it's become better for our officers. And then we partner that with the community to now where we're saying, hey, if you find that pet, yeah, an officer could come out there and look it up, but you can take the lead on that, and it's in your area, and you can utilize the social media, and you can trace a microchip. You don't need to be an animal control officer to trace a microchip. Pump it in on the internet. You can put a post up in your neighborhood and say, hey, I found this dog. And we're starting to see, the shelter created a program where people would come and they bring stray pets to the shelter and say, hey, if nobody claims it, I want to adopt it. Well, keep it in your home until somebody might be looking for it. And if nobody comes forward in 3 days, yeah, sure, keep it. We'll spay and neuter it for you. And what we've seen is the return to owners, because the officers are increasing now, right? And now these return to owners for people who are doing the finder to foster program and are hanging on to it in their home in the area in which it was lost, those return to owners are starting to increase. We're seeing less animals in the shelter, and more importantly, more people in the community being reunited with their pets. And that's what's most important.
Yeah. You're muted.
I know, that is like, I have to have the T-shirt of "You're muted."
Yeah.
But I think that I love what we're seeing now, particularly with it seems like with COVID, it has really increased too. But that idea of that community-based partnership, where it's not just the shelter, it's not just the animal control officers, it's everybody working together to get these pets home quickly, and it is a community effort, and that's one of the great things about social media that it's done for us too. I want to make sure before we leave that each one of you have a chance to share your organization again, and if folks want to learn more about your organization, how to learn more. So Spencer, let's start with you.
Absolutely. I will not steal Jerica's thunder. I'll let her talk about NACA, although I am on the NACA board. And you guys do need to, I really appreciate that's such an incredible organization. Outside of myself, the board and Jerica are incredible. I am with Pasco County Animal Services. We are the only municipal shelter in Pasco County. We work so closely with our region of Tampa. We work closely with St. Petersburg, Clearwater, some of the most beautiful beaches in the country. And we are really, really proud of the progressive animal control that the movement we've made. We just recently presented at a conference about our volunteers working with animal control and volunteers in animal control trucks and helping the community. And if you guys want to learn any more about our organization, www.mypasco.net/PAS, Pasco Animal Services, or you can shoot me an email, sconover, my first initial last name, @mypasco.net. And I'm happy to help anybody. We really, really want to get our message out there about progressive animal control and working with our community.
Absolutely. Fantastic.
And thank you for having me. I'm so sorry to say that. And thank you for having me.
No, we love having you. It's great. We'll make sure that we get in the comments section of this video all of your contact information so people can link out to it there. Eric, what about you? Please tell us about your organization and how we can learn more.
Yeah, check out Code 3 Associates. It's Code 3, the number 3, code3associates.org. And you'll get to learn that if you are a civilian and just want to learn about disaster response and how you can get involved, or whether you're a seasoned law enforcement officer, check it out. If you are into tech rescue and you are an animal control officer, you can go to asartraining.com. It's asartraining.com. And that's going to be for the advanced working with first responders with USAR, emergency management, and task force teams.
Thank you so much. And Jerica, we will end with you to talk about the amazing work that NACA does.
Yeah, so NACA, National Animal Care and Control Association, www.nacanet.org. Our website is full of just fantastic resources. We're constantly building and adding more resources for officers in the field, for those agencies that maybe need some additional resources and things like that. We also have the ACO 1 and ACO 2, which are online training. So with COVID, we had to pivot from in-person to online. The online trainings have been so incredibly successful. They're self-paced, and it really allows officers, especially maybe those who are already on the job, to take the training that's necessary in a time that works for them. So we know they're all busy, they're in the field, so being able to do it on their own time is really important. Sorry, now my dog is barking. So NACA, is committed to setting the standard for professionalism and animal welfare, and through public safety, networking, training, and advocacy. So come check us out. Keep an eye on our Facebook as well. And thank you, Lorien, and your amazing Pet Hub team. Eric, it was great to have you with us here today too. It's been great. Thanks.
You bet.
Thank you so much. And I have to say, from the bottom of our hearts here at Pet Hub, we thank you so much for all that you and all the other animal care and control officers that are out there helping our pets stay safe, get them back home to us when they are lost. You can visit us at pethub.com, where you can also go to lostpetpreventionmonth.com. We have a ton of resources about how you can be best prepared for if your pet goes missing, and then what to do if they do get lost. So to make sure you check that out. Thanks again. And until we see you guys again, keep those animals safe.